Hello friends, followers and channel members, welcome to another video here in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, where today I will be giving you my top 10 must-have tips for flying the Airbus A320 successfully in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So hit that subscribe button and let's get to it. Tip number 1 for flying the Airbus A320 is make sure you have downloaded the free fly-by-wire mod. Now, fly-by-wire are a team of developers, hundreds of developers all across the globe, who have come together to make a study-level Airbus A320 available, again I say, all for free within the world of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Head on over to their website where you can download their installer, and from there you will find 3 different versions. You can either download the stable build, which is, as the name suggests, the most stable, the developer build, which has all the latest features that they are currently working on, and the experimental version. Now, at this time of filming the video, the experimental version is not being updated, as the team are currently working on its own flight management system, which basically means that improved vertical and lateral navigation are all going to be incorporated within that. At the time of this video, I highly recommend downloading the developer version, and this will give you access to all of the best features from the fly-by-wire A32NX. It is a must-have if you're wanting to have a realistic, successful flight in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 in the Airbus A320neo. So go ahead and check that out. Once you've gone ahead and downloaded the A32NX from fly-by-wire, the next thing you must do, tip number 2, is calibrate those throttles correctly. Now, it doesn't matter what values you set, all that is essential is that you set the detents for the climb, the flex, and the toga settings on your thrust levers. Now, these can be wherever you want. Head over to the flypad, and on the settings page you will see that you'll be able to set the idle, climb and flex, and once you've got your throttle down into the bottom, that is obviously where you want to set your idle. Once you've set that, move to the climb, make sure you press set from throttle, hit the save and apply button, and then go through, same with the flex and same with the toga. You can then, if you wish, also change the distance that those values are set. As you can see by default, this one was set to 0.05. I can go ahead and change that to make the distance that your thrust levers register as the climb thrust as being as big or as small as you want. But the main important thing is to ensure that there's no crossover between the two, and that you are comfortable knowing where they are set, so that when you move those thrust levers, you know you're going to have them set to the exact right place, so you can control the auto thrust of the aircraft correctly. Tip number 4 then comes in the way of disabling the default air traffic control within Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Sadly, at the moment, it isn't really fit for purpose. It can give you some very strange commands, which will have you climbing to insane altitudes as you're getting closer and closer to your destination, which is very confusing for the seasoned pilot, let alone any beginners. Use the custom toolbar settings just here. Disable the air traffic control, get rid of that, and then you can even go into the simulator settings itself and disable it even further. Go to the assistance options, and once there, scroll down until you find the user experience, and from there you can turn off the ATC voices, you can disable the messages log in the ATC menu, and you can even remove the ATC panel opening at the start of your flights. Don't listen to default ATC. Tip number 5 then, and this one a little bit more complicated, but very, very important, and that is understanding how we can set the autopilot in the Airbus A320 to climb to any given altitude. There are 3 modes we can use with the autopilot. That is manage mode, where the aircraft is in charge of how fast it climbs based on constraints given by the standard instrument departures. There is open climb, which uses the speed the aircraft is targeting to increase or decrease the rate of climb, and then there is the vertical speed option. Now the vertical speed option is not one we'd really use for climbing, so we can disregard that, but I'm now about to set the aircraft to climb up to flight level 300 or 30,000 feet. At the moment we're going to do this in open climb, so I pull the button just there, and what this means is that the engines, as you can see, say thrust climb and open climb here on the primary flight display. What this means is that the engines have now started to command a certain level of power or thrust, and the aircraft, however, is still going to target 250 knots below 10,000 feet. That's just a speed limit. If we're giving the aircraft more thrust and more power, the only way to maintain 250 knots is to raise the nose of the aircraft, which is obviously then going to start to climb. That is open climb. We cannot go into manage mode, however, until the aircraft is in nav mode. As you can see, we've got 005 shown here. That is our heading. We are currently in heading mode. If we put this aircraft into nav mode, as shown just there, now we can select manage mode for the climb, and the aircraft will climb in manage mode. As you can see now, we've got climb and nav being shown at the top of the primary flight display. So these are the two modes that you would use for climbing in the Airbus A320. Don't use the VS speed. And remember, you can't use manage mode for the climb if you are in heading mode. There's more information in a much more detailed tutorial on my channel, so do go and check that out. But it's very important you know how you get the aircraft to climb in the way you want to get it to climb. Tip number 6. Always check your flight plan for your arrival route into your destination. This can save a great headache with the arrival looking like a mess as it does here. To do so, zoom in on the EFIS using the range rings just there, and make sure that your display is set to plan mode. And as you can see, once we've done that, you can scroll through the different waypoints using the up and down keys on the McDo, and as I'm doing this, you can see that this particular route that I've got keyed in here for a landing at runway 29 in Vienna is a complete mess. If we left the autopilot to fly this, it's not going to be a nice smooth flight or a successful landing. So we want to go ahead and change it. Zoom out a little bit so you can see the majority of the arrival route that you've got planned in, and then change the plan. So we go to our arrival page, we can then scroll down, we'll set runway 29 again, but this time I'm going to cycle through and just select some different arrival routes. The new routes are shown in yellow, and you can see that one looks much more sensible. Let's try the next one. Again, this one looks far better, straight down. That one looks a complete mess. We're not going to select that one. And it's all about choosing the one that you think is going to give you the best approach. So in this case, that one looks rather nice. I can then select a different initial approach fix as well. And once you are happy with how that arrival all looks, on the bottom right hand side, hit insert. And once we do that, we should have a nice arrival plan. One thing at the moment I would check is the waypoint the aircraft is going to at the point of doing this. Put the aircraft into heading mode and then hit insert. And this is just because there's a slight bug within the flight simulator at the time of filming this, in that sometimes the aircraft veers off course when changing the star at the last minute. The standard arrival route. Once you're happy that you're back on course, pop the aircraft back into nav mode, and you can now enjoy a smooth landing route into your destination. Tip number 7 involves checking the RadNav page of the McDo to ensure that if you are doing an ILS approach, you actually have a frequency in the LS field. Now, automatically in the real world, this should self-populate when you select an ILS approach on your flight plan. However, sometimes the simulator doesn't do this for you. It means that when you turn on the LS button, you're not going to get any information on your primary flight display, such as the magenta diamonds. Your localizer button and approach button will not work. So just do a paranoia check. Check that you have got a frequency into the LS field for your ILS approach. And if you haven't, you can find this frequency on the approach charts using Navigraph or many of the free ones available on the internet. Tip number 8, and this is planning your top of descent properly. Now, there are 3 ways to do this. The fly-by-wire mod also has a top of descent calculator which you can use on the flypad, but as a simple rule of thumb, we can use the rule of 3. So, what is the rule of 3? Let's have a quick look. If we go down to the McDo and go to the progress page, let's say we're landing at London Gatwick. The code for London Gatwick is, of course, Echo Golf Kilo Kilo. We pop this in this field here, and you can see we've got a distance of 827 miles away from that airport. So when do we need to start the descent? Well, if we are at 38,000 feet, we need to divide that by 1,000. That gives us 38, and then just do 38 multiplied by 3. The answer to that sum is 114. 114 miles away from London Gatwick, we will start our descent. Now, that is a very loose rule of thumb, and there are a couple of things that you also need to bring into play here. For instance, if we've got a tailwind, as you can see, that's quite minor, so that's not going to affect us too much. But if you've got a really strong tailwind, you'll need to begin that descent a little sooner. Just the opposite, if you've got a headwind, you can also afford to delay that a little bit. There's a more detailed tutorial on this on the channel, so go and check that out. But the rule of 3 works great. Tip number 9 then, do not forget to activate the approach phase as we start to head down towards your destination. We need to make sure that the aircraft is going to start slowing down, otherwise you're going to find yourself in great trouble as you approach the airport. So below 10,000 feet, that's when we want to start considering activating the approach phase, unless it's been done so automatically. More about that in my more detailed tutorials. But if you go to the performance page and then scroll through to the approach page, you'll see the approach phase just there. Click once to arm it and turns it amber. Click it again and that will arm the approach phase. Finally, tip number 10. How do we make a smooth landing? Unfortunately, I could spend all day here, but the key things that I would say is make sure that you look outside the window. It sounds crazy, but it's so easy to focus on the instruments down below. Try and track that center line and keep that landing zone in the center of your screen, or at least try not to have it moving too far up or too far down. Track that center line, and as soon as you hear the radio altimeter call outs hit 30, that's when you want to pull the thrust back to idle and start that flare. Not too hard, just gentle, and hold it there until the aircraft safely touches down on the runway. Remember that we are not looking for the smoothest possible landing in the world. 3 things that pilots look for when they are landing. Number 1 is land on the center line. Number 2, land in the landing zone. And finally, and least, number 3, if you get a decent touchdown rate, then so be it. But centerline, landing zone, touchdown rate, in that order. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you found these tips quite useful. If you have, please do remember to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell. If you do have any questions about anything you've seen in the video today, please do leave a comment down below and I will be sure to come back and answer you. Thanks for watching, guys, and I shall see you all in the next video very soon. Bye bye for now.